Come in physics classes for class 9 by K. Singh, Minerva Public School, Basantpur. Today we will study force and Newton's law of motion. Force, first thing force. Generally we know a push or a pull is a force, but this definition is insufficient for class 9. Later on when we will study Newton's first law of motion, we will find out the definition of force from the law of motion. But before it will study what are the effects of force. The effect of force. There are various effects of force. Number one, a force can set a body into motion which is at rest. Suppose this body is at rest, if we apply a force on it, it will set into motion. Thus a force can set a body into motion which is already at rest. Next, a force can stop a moving body. Suppose the body is moving in any one direction. If we apply the force from the opposite direction, the force may stop the moving body. Third, a force can change the direction of motion. We generally see that when a bowler throw a ball on the wicket, the batsman hit the ball and change its direction and set into outside the boundary. Next, a force can increase the motion of a body. A force can increase or decrease both. It can increase, it can decrease the speed of a moving body. We see that when the ball is running towards the boundary, the fielder dive and push the ball with his hand, which reduces the speed, and then the other fielder catch the ball. Thus we see that force can reduce the speed of the body, speed of the ball. In the same way, if the batsman sees that the ball is coming to the wicket, he or she sweeps the ball in the direction which the ball is already going. If this sweeps or this sweeping force increase the speed of the ball in such a way, in such high that no fielder can catch it and the ball straight cross the boundary. Thus we have seen these four effects of force. Next effect, a force can cause damage to the body. If you hit the window glass pan with a stone, the pan will broke. Same way you can do with other things. If you apply a force on a page of paper to tear it, it will turn pieces. This can show that a force can cause damage to a body. These are the various effects of force. Now we will see the Newton's laws of motion. But before we going towards Newton's law of motion, I am going to erase it. Newton's laws of motion. There are three laws of motion. First law of motion, second law of motion, and third law of motion. We will study one by one all these three laws. First we will take the first Newton's first law of motion. But before taking this, before going through this law, we will discuss some phenomena in around us which we generally see. While you are sitting in a running bus, and the driver suddenly applies the brake, you lean forward. And if you are sitting a stationary bus and the driver suddenly starts the bus, you will lean backward. Why this happens? Why this happens? We will study it in Newton's laws of motion. Also, we generally see that when a fielder catches the ball, he or she withdrew his hand in backward direction. Why this? We will study Newton's first law of motion. Newton's second laws of motion. Why jet plane flies? There are so many phenomena that explain Newton's laws of motion. We will first study the Newton first law of motion. First law of motion. First law of motion. Newton's first law of motion. According to this law, everybody has a tendency to remain in its state of rest or uniform motion until an external force is applied on it. Means, if a body is at rest, it will remain at rest if we apply no force. If a body is in motion, it will remain in motion if we apply no force. Thus, this law has two parts. From the first part, we get the property of the body that keeps the body at rest or uniform motion. Always mention uniform motion, not only motion, uniform motion. This property is said to be inertia. Thus, inertia is the property of a body due to which the body remain in its state of rest or uniform motion until an external force is applied on it. Means, if force is an external cause that changes the state of a body from rest to motion or motion to rest, or try to do so. Thus, from the first part of the word, this law, first part of the first law of motion, we get the definition of inertia, and from the second part, we get the definition of force. Then, what is inertia? Inertia is the property of a body Inertia is the property of a body by virtue of which the body tends to remain in a state of rest or uniform motion in the same direction. Thus, this inertia is of three types. Number one, inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction. Inertia of rest. Inertia of rest. It is the property of a body at rest, due to which the body at rest tends to remain in its state of rest. Inertia of motion. It is the property of a body in motion, due to which the body tends to remain in its uniform motion, uniform speed until an external force is applied on it. Inertia of direction, it is the property of a body in motion whose direction of motion does not change. For example, if a body is moving on a circular track, circular path, say it is in position A, at that time its direction of motion is in the direction of the tangent. If the body reaches at B, then its direction of motion is in the direction of the tangent. Thus, a body moving on circular path, its direction of motion is always in the direction of the tangent at the point where the body is situated. Means this direction remain continue until we apply an force on the body. This force may be centripetal force that brings the body towards the center of the circular path. This may be centrifugal force that tells the body to run in the direction of the tangent away from the circular path. Thus, the inertia is of three types: inertia of rest, inertia of motion, and inertia of direction.